You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Hello and welcome back to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. If you've been listening to this show for a while, you've heard me talk about the infinite banking concept from a lot of different angles. The philosophy behind it, Nelson Nash's wisdom, the importance of the right policy design. Because one of the things I find in conversations with people who are curious about IBC is that they get the big picture, borrow against your policy, pay yourself back, be your own bank, but the mechanics of how it actually works can still be a little bit fuzzy. So today I want to clear that up. We're going to walk through some of the most important and most misunderstood mechanics of IBC in a way that helps you understand why this works the way it does. Today we're going to cover 4 big ideas: what actually happens when you take a policy loan, what it means to keep your money in motion, and why Nelson Nash said the banking function is the most important business you'll ever be in, and the true cost of borrowing. So first of all, what really happens when you take a policy loan? Let me start with what is probably the single most misunderstood thing about IBC, but may be clear to you if you've done a lot of research or listened to most of my podcasts or many others different podcasts that are out there. When you take a policy loan in an IBC strategy, you are not actually withdrawing your cash value. You are borrowing money from the insurance company, using your cash value as collateral for the loan. The insurance company looks at your cash value and says, we're willing to lend you up to such and such amount because it's backed by the cash value you have with us. But your cash value doesn't move. It stays right where it is, continuing to earn interest and dividends as if the loan never happened. Now, you do have the option of withdrawing the money instead, but for the large majority of the time, it would be better for you to borrow against the policy. So let's think about this for just a moment. You take a loan, the cash is in your hands, you can use it for whatever you need: a new car, a real estate deal, a business expense, your child's education. And at the same time, back in your policy, your original cash value is still sitting there, still compounding, still growing. You are essentially using the same dollars twice. That is not a typo and it's not a sales pitch, it's just how it works. Now compare that to what happens when you pull money out of a traditional savings account or a 401k. That money is gone from the account. It stops compounding the moment you touch it. You've broken the chain of growth. When you borrow against a 401k, those assets are sold to cover your loan, so they will miss out on market returns. And then, as you pay yourself back, you will be buying back into the market, potentially at higher prices. With a policy loan, the chain never breaks. Your money is working for you in the policy, and it's working for you wherever you've deployed it. That's the power that makes IBC so different from anything else in personal finance. And yes, the loan does carry an interest rate, and you do need to repay it. We'll get to that in a moment. But the fact that your underlying cash value is untouched and still compounding is what separates this from every other form of borrowing you've ever encountered. Now I want to talk about what Nelson Nash called keeping your money in motion, because this is where IBC goes from being an interesting financial tool to being a genuine system. Here's a question I want you to think about. What does the bank do the moment you deposit money into a savings account with them? They lend it out. Immediately. They are never letting that money sit idle. The second your deposit hits their books, they're using it to generate more. They lend it to someone buying a house. They lend it to a business taking out a line of credit. They lend it to a car buyer. And they collect interest on every single one of those loans using your money. That's the banking model. Keep the money moving. Never let it sit. IBC teaches you to do the exact same thing, but for yourself. When your cash value is sitting in your policy and you have a need like a car, an investment opportunity, or a home renovation, instead of going to a bank and repaying them interest, you borrow against your policy. You take the funds, you make the purchase or the investment, and then you create a repayment plan back to yourself with interest. As a side note, I said, Yes, you have to pay the interest back. And of course, it's in your best interest too, and you will eventually pay the company all the interest back. But you do have complete control of that. You don't have to pay it back on a timeline. You have complete control of what you're paying back to the insurance company at all times. And you can skip a year and allow the interest to just flow back into the loan. So anyhow, your repayment with interest flows back into your policy, which means your banking system is now larger than it was before. More capital in the pool, more available for the next use. And all the while, remember your original cash value never stopped growing and never stopped compounding. It's a cycle. Borrow, deploy, repay with interest, grow. Borrow, deploy, repay with interest, grow. Every time you move money through your system intentionally and replenish it properly, the system gets stronger. That's what motion means. Not movement for just its own sake, but deliberate, disciplined circulation of capital through a system that you control. This requires discipline. You have to actually repay the loans if you borrow from your policy and treat it like a gift to yourself. No repayment plan, no interest. You are going to erode your own system. Nelson Nash had a phrase for this that I talked about in the last episode that he called stealing the peas. You are consuming the product that was supposed to grow your business. The mindset shift IBC requires is treating your policy like a real bank, one that you own and operate. And that means honoring the repayment the same way you would a loan from an institution. Because when you do, the interest goes back to you instead of to them. And that changes everything. Okay, next topic. The most important business you're already in. The next idea is something Nelson Nash said that we think about all the time. He said that everyone should be in two businesses: the business they make their living in and the banking business that finances whatever they do for a living. And of those two, the banking function is the most important. Now, when most people hear that, they think, I'm not a banker. I'm a dentist, or I'm a business owner, or I'm a contractor. They don't see themselves as having anything to do with banking. But here's what Nash was pointing at. Every single thing you do in your financial life involves the banking function. Your mortgage, banking. Your car loan, banking. Your business line of credit, banking. Even paying cash for something involves banking because you're giving up the interest that money could have earned. You are participating in the banking system every single day, whether you think of yourself as a banker or not. The question is just who's in control of that function? Who's capturing the value of it? Right now, for most people, the answer is the bank. They are collecting the interest on your mortgage. They are collecting the interest on your car. They are using your deposits to fund loans to other people and keeping the profit. You are a customer in their system. IBC says, what if you own the system instead? What if the interest you paid on your car went back to your own pool of capital instead of to a lender? What if your emergency fund wasn't just sitting in a low-yield savings account, but was actually growing and available to you as a source of financing whenever you needed it? That's what IBC makes possible. You don't eliminate the banking function from your life, you just move it in-house. You take on the role that the bank has been playing, and you keep the value for yourself. Nash believed, and I believe, that this is the most powerful financial shift an individual can make. Not picking better stocks, not finding a higher interest rate, but controlling the process through which all of your money flows. And finally, the true cost of borrowing. It's not the rate, it's the volume. I want to close today with something that I think is genuinely one of the most important financial concepts most people have never consciously thought about, and it's the idea of volume of interest. When we evaluate a loan, a mortgage, a car loan, a student loan, we almost always focus on the interest rate. Is it 5%? Is it 7%? Is it 3.9%? We've been trained to think that the rate is the key number. But Nelson Nash taught something different. He said the rate is almost irrelevant compared to the volume, meaning the total number of dollars that leave your hands and flow to a lender over the life of your loan. Let me give you a more concrete example. Let's say you buy a home for $400,000. You put 20% down and finance $320,000 at, say, 6.5% over 30 years. Your monthly payment on that would be around $2,023. That sounds manageable, right? Now do the math on what you actually pay over those 30 years. It's roughly $728,000 in total payments on a $320,000 loan. You paid more than twice the amount you borrowed, over $400,000 in interest to the bank. 6.5% sounds reasonable, but $400,000 in interest? I don't think so. And here's the big thing. That interest money is gone. It built the bank's wealth. It funded their operations. It paid their shareholders. Not $1 of it came back to you. Now, what if even a portion of that interest had flowed back to your own system? What if instead of paying a bank $400,000 in interest over your lifetime, you were repaying a policy loan with interest that went back into your own pool of capital? That's the recapture concept at the heart of IBC. You can't eliminate the cost of borrowing. Money has a cost, and that's true whether you borrow it or give up the growth it could have earned. But you can change who captures that cost. You can redirect it from the bank's ledger to your own. When you truly internalize the volume of interest you've been handing away over a lifetime on your home, your cars, your business, the idea of being your own banker stops being a concept and starts being an urgency. All right, that covers our topic for today. Let me give you the short version of what we just went over. When you take a policy loan, your cash value stays fully intact and continues to compound. You're using the same dollars twice. Keeping your money in motion means deliberately borrowing, deploying, and repaying through your policy system, just like a bank does with depositors' money. The banking function is the most important business in your financial life, and IBC puts you in the driver's seat of that. And it's highly important to consider the volume of interest that you are paying, not just the interest rate. If you learned something from today's episode, share it with someone. This information changes the way people think about money. When I first learned all this information, I wondered, why doesn't everybody know this? Hello, this should be taught in school. Okay, well, I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.